It is time for our final opponent preview of the season. It's going to be the very first Missouri Valley Football Conference game of the year for Indiana State. It will be a Thursday night to cap off the month of September for the Sycamores. It's when the UNI Panthers will come to Terre Haute. And a guy who is very familiar, not just with UNI, but also the Missouri Valley Football Conference, is Brad Wells. You will see him on the Missouri Valley Football Conference television network throughout the year, and he also does some games for the Panthers Sports Network for UNI when they are at home in the Unidome. Let's welcome Brad Wells in now to talk in UNI football. Brad, it's always a pleasure to talk with you, my friend. How are you doing? Are you trying to get an itch? Are you ready to get back and talking some Missouri Valley Conference football?
I tell you what, nothing is better than the start of the football season. No, I'm getting very excited to get this school year up and rolling. And, man, it should be another great year in the Missouri Valley Football Conference with some fantastic teams.
Yeah, you used to talk about it. And there's a reason UNI is always one of those teams in the upper tier. And that's because of Mark Farley and what he has done in building that program. You're around it a lot just due to your day-to-day job there in Cedar Falls. Knowing Coach Farley's a guy who played for UNI. He was a GA. He was an assistant coach. And now, obviously, the head coach for the past, I think, 17 years. This will be year number 18, I think, this fall. This kind of answers itself just speaking of his background. But how much pride is there about UNI football because of the guy who leads the charge in Coach Farley?
Well, yeah, you hear about people, they're UNI Panther through and through. Coach Farley likes to use the phrase, man, I bleed purple, and I bled purple back when I was a player, and he is a guy that is just so passionate about this university. He'll wear it on his sleeve, and he takes a ton of pride in the university, the football program, the other programs, the whole community that he's been a part of for a very long time. And I tell you what, he takes his football seriously, and he wants to do right by his former players, the UNI football alum that came before even his playing days, the coaches that he played for, that he coached with. He has just a ton of pride in keeping UNI football at the top of the heap and striving for that national title.
The schedule for UNI, they're going to be on the road 3 of the first 4 games. And also before we even got on the air, we talked about that stretch of when they're going to see the Sycamores. They play Iowa on the 15th. They play Hampton on the 22nd. And then just 5 days later, they're going to see Indiana State on a Thursday night. How difficult of a stretch do you think, let alone the opponents UNI is going to see, just in terms of how many games they're going to be playing in the early portion of that schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Talking to Coach Farley this past spring, the plan was to, after you play Iowa on the 15th, have a week off, then you start conference play on a Thursday. There's a lot of talk about how tough scheduling is in the college basketball realm. Well, for football, it's a lot of the same. The Panthers, they go at Montana for a tough game in Missoula. They're in Iowa City for a game against the Big Ten's Iowa Hawkeyes. Then they'll have their first home game of the season against Hampton the 22nd. But then not just a Thursday game on the 27th against the Sycamores. This thing is going to be in Terre Haute, so you kind of lose a day when you've got that road game. So it's going to be a very short week for the UNI football team ahead of this Indiana State squad. And I know extra rest after those games in which UNI typically plays a Big Ten or a Big 12 opponent. It's usually needed just to physically recover from the football game, just the bruising that comes from playing against those bigger, faster players.
You brought up Marcus Weimiller and the impact he's going to have and how important of a piece he is. I also brought up Eli Dunn, the quarterback who was a junior a year ago, now going to be in his senior year. As you look up and down this UNI team, whether it's offensively, defensively, what are the main areas of focus that you, Brad, when you're going through your notes throughout fall camp, you're going, this is going to be an area that we have to look at as a UNI fan or just as a football fan in general, because that could really tell the story of what kind of team UNI will have this fall?
Well, I always look at our passing game just because, especially this year, we've got a lot of big receivers coming back. You got Eli Dunn, the quarterback, back for his senior year. But you mentioned Marcus Weimiller. Last year, the coaches really stuck to the ground game, and that it kind of kept the balance. Sometimes, you either get behind or you get caught up with numbers and just offensive flow, and you can lean too far on the passing game. I think UNI did an excellent job last season of keeping that balance of the running game with the passing game. And so I look at the running backs with Marcus Y. Miller, the senior, an honorable mention, all Missouri Valley Conference kid that, really when he came into UNI was a running back. They moved him to wide receiver. And then I think it was in 2016, I think it was a game at Indiana State. UNI was without Eli Dunn, I believe, in that game. He went into the Wildcat mode and went off for almost 200 yards. And, has run the Wildcat ever since. Like it wasn't it wasn't by mistake. It was certainly something that they had been practicing. But, Jalen James, Aaron Graham, all these guys, big play potentials and a solid core at wide receiver for Eli Dunn. And then there's a couple of tight ends that are starting to get some accolades as well. I know Hero Sports, who does a pretty good job covering FCS football, they listed 2 UNI Panther tight ends in the top 5 of all FCS tight ends. So you got Briley Moore, a 6'3" junior. He's all Missouri Valley Conference honorable mention, had a couple games close to 100 yards receiving, and he is fun to watch, Luke. He catches the ball, and he's immediately looking for someone to hit or run over. He's really fun to watch. He's looking for contact. He catches the ball, and he turns around, and he's not running the sideline. He's running for a defender.
When you flip it to the defensive side, it really seemed like, even though, of course, I follow the Sycamores throughout the year and just see Indiana State games, that Jared Farley, of course, the son of Mark Farley, that he was a big energy piece and kind of the leader of that defensive squad throughout last year. How big of a piece will he be that you have to replace that? But also, what are some people around him, some players around him that make you and others confident that defense can still be a stout one?
Yeah, no, that will be a very big piece, losing Jared Farley. I know when his older brother left, we thought, man, this guy's the quarterback of the defense. How are we going to replace him? Well, we had a younger Farley that replaced him, and now that Jared's gone, there is that question mark. Top guy that comes to mind for me in the linebacker core for this UNI football team is Duncan Furch. He's the top returning tackler, had 94 on the year last year, was second on the team only to Jared Farley. And then a young guy, Jake Hartford, played really well in the middle of the season, had 9 tackles in the game against Youngstown State, where he actually filled in for Jared Farley, who missed the half for the targeting penalty, and Hartford able to kind of finish that entire game out. I had 9 tackles against Youngstown State, 7 tackles against Cal Poly, where he got in there, some pretty meaningful snaps as well. I know that Cal Poly game, he was in there, had a pass breakup to clinch the win in overtime early in the season, to where that kind of helped UNI at least have a couple of wins there early in that season. We mentioned that 2-3 start before they finished 8-5. But that's that linebacking core. But it's certainly a big job replacing Jared Farley.
And we'll start to find those answers out September 1st when UNI will open up against Montana. Of course, fall camp getting started today, August 1st for Indiana State. They will see the UNI Panthers September 27th. It will be a Thursday night here in beautiful Terre Haute at Memorial Stadium. Once again, Brad Wells has been our guest for the Missouri Valley Football Conference Television Network and also the Panthers Sports Network. Brad, it is always a pleasure to catch up with you, buddy. Hopefully get to bump into you from time to time throughout football season, and sooner or later, it'll be basketball time too.
Hey, that sounds good. Thanks for having me, Luke. We'll talk to you soon.